Our next presenter is Hank Janae. Hank has been employed by the Public Utility Commission of Texas, or PUCT, since January of 2022. Hank is a Geographic Information Systems Specialist for the mapping section of the Infrastructure Division. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Geography and Master's of Education degree in Sports Management from the University of Texas. He helps assist retail water and sewer public utilities meet the mapping requirements for all types of applications filed with the PUCT. So please welcome Hank Janae.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this mic is working, and I may mess with it a lot just because it's falling, but appreciate you all taking the time to be here today. So as you mentioned, I'm the GI specialist in the Infrastructure Division's mapping section. Today, the main focus of my presentation is on using the water CCN viewer. Some other additional purposes of this presentation is kind of introduce the mapping section staff and our role at the PUC. I'm also going to provide some helpful definitions of CCNs and types of CCNs, which are displayed on the CCN viewer. I'm also going to go over some of our CCN mapping resources that are available on our webpage. And then lastly, obviously, I'm going to go over what the water sewer CCN viewer is and the information that it includes. And I'm also planning to highlight some ways that the viewer can be used that you may use as well. So starting with the mapping section staff, first we have Tracy Montez, who's the manager, who's actually in the crowd right here in the front row. Also Dave Babicki, who's also in the front row as well. We have Cynthia Rausch, Gary Horton, Kamal Patel, Jacob Stone, and obviously myself. So our role at the PUC is mainly to maintain the boundaries of the retail water and sewer certificates of convenience and necessity, also known as CCNs. We also provide current CCN data to the public, which is available on our website to download, but also available on the viewer. And lastly, we also evaluate the mapping information filed in CCN applications and provide mapping guidance to these applicants when they do file applications with the PUC. So these are kind of just our main roles dealing with the water and sewer industry. We obviously have some other roles in the different, and some electric things and telecom, but this is the main focus for water. So what is a CCN? So I apologize, saying CCN is kind of hard a lot, so I may mispronounce it, but CCN basically is a certificate of convenience and necessity that gives a retail public utility the exclusive right to provide retail water or sewer utility service to an identified geographic area, commonly referred to as certificated service area. So once a utility has a CCN, the CCN holder is required to provide continuous and adequate service to the area within its CCN boundary that has been granted by the Commission. So focusing on CCNs, there are actually three different types that we have at the PUC. First is a bounded service area CCN, which is a certificated service area that has closed boundaries. Next, we have a facilities plus 200 feet CCN, which is also a certificated service area represented by lines that include a buffer that's usually 200 feet wide. And lastly, we have a facilities only CCN, which is a certificated service area that's also represented by lines and are granted for a point of use. The one thing to know about facility only CCNs is they only allow specific customer connections at the point of use, which is the customer's addresses that were granted by the Commission at the time that the CCN was approved. Additional note about this type of CCN is that this CCN does not allow the CCN holder to expand to new customer connections like the others two do. So now moving to our CCN Mapping Resources webpage. So as you can see on here, the link will take you to our webpage. It's also available through the PUC's main webpage as well. But our team periodically updates this webpage to include new mapping resources and guidance to help applicants and the mapping professionals meet these mapping requirements. So as you can see in this screenshot is from our webpage directly, and some of these mapping resources include a CCN mapping video and the PDF of that video, ArcGIS map templates, which are help applicants create customizable maps that help meet the mapping requirements, a link to the water and sewer CCN viewer and also the viewer, and then lastly, some frequently asked questions. So I guess any of you that attended that presentation before that was going over the legislative updates, he mentioned at the end that there was a new rule passed recently about a mapping attestation. And so that mapping attestation is for mapping professionals to basically attest to them viewing this information that's on a webpage, which includes all these resources. And this is something that has to be filed when you do file an application with the PUC moving forward. And that actually came into date as of July 30th was the date that went into effect. So moving to these frequently asked questions. So we highly encourage any mapping professionals, but also just any applicant to review these as they provide useful mapping information and resource to help utilities create the required maps and data needed for different types of applications and petitions. One FAQ I want to kind of highlight is the one at the bottom, this FAQ number 9, how do I use the water and sewer CCN viewer? So this FAQ provides a quick overview of what the CCN viewer is and how it can be used. In addition to, it actually includes a link to navigate to that CCN viewer itself. And then another quick FAQ I want to point out that's really helpful that we always recommend people view is the FAQ number 6, where can I find map examples for applications and petitions? So this FAQ includes map examples for each of the different types of applications and petitions filed at the PUC. So each of these links that's on our webpage includes a general location map example and a detail map example to help meet the mapping requirements the mapping professionals may use to help create those required maps. Finally, now moving to the water and sewer CCN viewer, also commonly referred to as just the CCN viewer because it's one of the main ones we have at the PUC. So this is a screenshot directly from our webpage to show one location where you can access the viewer. And you'll see throughout this presentation, there's a lot of different ways you can actually get to this viewer from our webpage. So this is a screenshot, as I mentioned, on the webpage, and this is located directly above the FAQ, and it's pretty large, so it's pretty hard to miss when you do access our webpage. But as I was mentioning in the FAQ number 9, the viewer displays the official digital mapping data for the water and sewer CCNs. The digital mapping data being displayed on this viewer is available to download from our webpage in FAQ number 8. So the CCN viewer, it does allow retail water and sewer utilities to view their existing CCN boundaries, but it also allows customers, potential customers, and the general public to view these existing boundaries to determine who their CCN holder may be for a specific address. Lastly, the CCN viewer allows you to print maps of the boundaries of these CCNs. So once you click into the viewer, so if you would click onto that map or any of the other links available on the webpage, this is the first pop-up you'll see. And so it's important to note the date when the spatial data set and metadata were last updated. So on this screenshot, it's April 1st. I think we actually just recently updated because the data on the viewer is updated quarterly. And then one last thing is that bottom note is that some of the CCN boundaries that are displayed on the viewer may not be formally approved and have pending dockets that haven't been approved by the commissioners or the commission. And I'll highlight those. Those can be recognized in the attribute table of the CCN viewer that I will highlight later. So once you click off that pop-up, this is what the viewer will first look like when you open it up. And so as you can see at the top, here's kind of just the Public Utility Commission's name and then the name of the viewer, which is Water and Sewer CCN Viewer. Right to the right of this, we have this download GIS data right here. So if you were to click on this button, the download GIS data, this will take you back to the web page to FAQ number 8, where you're able to download the digital mapping data for both the water and the sewer CCNs. To the right of this, we have 5 different icons, these kind of blue icons at the top right, that each have a different function that can be used on the viewer that I'll go into more detail shortly. And then kind of navigating way back to the left, right beneath the blue banner on this left side of the screen is the search bar. So this search bar allows you to look up specific CC numbers, addresses, county, and even legislative districts. And then to the left of that search bar, you can see it's a plus and minus sign. So this is one way you're able to kind of zoom in and zoom out on the map. You also can do so just using your mouse wheel, zooming in like typical on a Google Maps or anything like that. And then directly below that, we have this little house icon. So house icon is used to go back to this default extent that's currently being displayed on the screen. So if you happen to maybe zoom in too far, you get lost somewhere on the map, you can click this house button, it'll take you back to this default extent. And then lastly, down at the bottom, this kind of white rectangle is the attribute table. And as you can see, it has 4 separate tabs for the different types of water and sewer CCNs. So there's a tab for the water CCN facility lines, which includes all water CCNs that are either facilities plus 200 feet or just facility only. And then there's a tab for the water CCN service area, which includes all water CCNs that are bounded service area CCNs. And then lastly, you can see there's 2 for the sewer, and these are separated the same way in between facility line CCNs and bounded service area CCNs. As I mentioned, if you were to click that download GIS data button at the top in the blue band of the viewer, it will take you back to FAQ number 8 on a web page, and this is where you can download that digital mapping data for the CCNs. So as you can see, this FAQ includes 2 zip folders in these blue boxes. These are projected in the Texas Statewide Mapping System projection, and these are able to be used in GIS software if you have that access to you or available to you. And then also we have these 2 green boxes, which is it's a zip file for the water and sewer CCNs, which are projected in the Texas State Plane Coordinate System, and these are able to be used in CAD software. And then lastly, as you can see, here's another link to the CCN viewer so you can kind of navigate quickly back and forth between the 2. Oh, and one thing to note is that this data download is the same data that's being displayed on the viewer and it's also updated quarterly. So if you do download the data, I always recommend going back to the webpage, depending on the last time you did download it, just to make sure you have the most up-to-date CCN data available. So now going back to those top right icons on the viewer that I mentioned previously. So first we have the map layers icon, which kind of looks like a sandwich, or it looks like a cake, like a tiramisu, people say sometimes. But this is for the map layers, and this allows you to turn on and off certain layers on the viewer. And so to turn them off or on, you can just do by clicking or checking and unchecking the box. So the ones that are checked on are turned on currently, and the ones that are not being displayed. In addition to, we have this little tag icon, and this is for the labels displayed on the viewer themselves. So when you turn on one of these viewers by checking them on, the label will be defaulted to be turned on. However, if you're not wanting to see that label, you can click this little tag icon and it'll turn off the labels for that map. So as you can see, some of the other different map layers we have on the viewer include counties and these legislative districts that you can turn on. However, these are defaulted to be turned off when you first open the viewer. So next, we have the legend icon, which is the second icon on the top right. It's kind of just like 3 little bullet points. And so this legend basically identifies any of the map layers that are currently just turned on the viewer and how they are symbolized on the map. So as you can see, since the water CCN, the facility lines, the service areas, and the sewer facility line and service areas are turned on, these are being shown in the legend. And as you can see, for the water CCNs, they're symbolized with purple lines and purple hatching patterns. And then for the sewer, it's for orange lines and orange hatching patterns. So moving along, so in the next icon, the third icon on the top right, you see it's a little printer. So this is the print icon. So when you do select this icon, it brings up the option to print what is currently being displayed on the viewer that you're seeing. It allows you to change the size and orientation of the map you're printing out in addition to the map title. So once you click that print button at the bottom, down here, this blue one, you can then navigate to this results tab, which will include a PDF you're able to download, or you can print out a physical copy. And then we have the second to last icon on the top right, which is kind of a circle with 3 arrows, is the share icon. So this allows you to share a link to the CCN viewer, which, if used, will take the person that accesses the link to the exact view that you are seeing on the CCN viewer at the time you copied the link. So you're able to either just copy the link from that little copy thing, or copy it by Control-C, or you can send in an email using this purple envelope icon at the bottom. So this is a very helpful function on the viewer if you wanted to share exactly what you're seeing on your screen at the time you copy the link without actually creating a map for them. And lastly, in the top right, I don't have a picture, but you can see this little circle with the eye. So this is the disclaimer that any user the viewer agrees to when they first open the viewer. So I definitely recommend reading that during your own time. So next we have 2 icons that you didn't see on that first default extent, and that's because they're covered up if you have any of these 5 functions open. So if all these 5 functions are closed, you can see these 2 new icons appear. And one is for the measure tool. And so this measure tool allows you to measure any distances or areas directly on the viewer, and has a numerous number of different units you can use to measure. And then above that is the 4 kind of different little maps. And so this is the base map icon. And this allows you to change to a number of different Esri base maps that are available. That include some different street maps and imagery as well. The default one that we use is the street base map. So now going back to that attribute table that's located at the bottom of the viewer. So as you can see, it may be hard to see, but there is a small arrow at the top of the viewer. So if you were to click this button, it would either close or open that attribute table. Also, if you're wanting to kind of display more rows, right now you can see it only has 5 rows. If you want to display more rows, you can kind of click on the top of this and drag upwards onto the viewer. However, if you do this, more of the view of that map will actually be covered by this table. So you just want to make sure you have a nice balance. When you do first open the viewer, this attribute table will be defaulted to be open as well, just so it's easy to see, since that arrow is kind of hard to see sometimes. So what I have currently displaying is for the water CCN service area tab. And so as you can see, there are 5 different columns in this table. So starting from left to right, we have the CCN number. So this indicates that the CCN number, which is either a 5-digit number that starts with a number 1 if it's a water CCN, or starts with a number 2 if it's a sewer CCN. And obviously, since I'm in the water CCN service area tab, all these will start with the number 1. Then next we have utility, which is a utility name associated with that CCN number. Then we have DBA, which if there's any doing business as name that the utility is using, this would be indicated here. And then next we have the status column. So this indicates, as I was mentioning previously on that pop-up, if the CCN that's being displayed is approved by the commission or not. And so you can see as this last one, this 10025, this one actually has a pending order in docket 52190. And this means that this CCN that's being shown in this view is still pending a final order and has not been approved by the commission. And then lastly, we have the CCN type. And so this is the type of CCN that's being displayed. And so since we're in the water CCN service area, all these will be bounded service area CCNs. But if we're in one of the facility lines, it would indicate if it's a facilities only CCN or a facilities plus 200 feet CCN. So kind of going back to those types of CCNs. So first we have the bounded service area CCN. And so this is what it looks like on the viewer if you were to zoom to one. And you can tell that also by looking at the CCN type in this pop-up bounded service area CCN. So these type of CCNs are displayed as polygons in the viewer with closed boundaries, as I was mentioning. Moving to the facilities plus 200 feet, you can see this is facilities plus 200 feet. As you can see in the CCN type here, facilities plus 200 feet. So as I was mentioning, these are represented by lines on the viewer. But since this one's a facilities plus 200 feet, that means the CCN holder is granted or certificated 200 feet in all directions off the direction of the line is currently being displayed. And then lastly, that last type of CCN is the facilities only. So as you can see, it's also represented by a line on the viewer. And the only way to determine what type it is looking at the CCN type, and it's facilities only. So that's why it's really important for the facility line CCNs to click on and determine if it's a facilities plus 200 feet CCN or just a facility only CCN. So before showing some scenarios of actually using the viewer, one more resource that I want to share with everyone is the water utility database, which this is available through the PUC's main webpage. So this database allows you to look up utilities by their name or their CC number. So this is kind of a very helpful tool if you may know the name of the utility or just the number or vice versa, so you can determine either the CC name or the CC number. So this is a quick search I've done as an example. And so as you can see in the search bar, I wanted to determine the CC number for Barnhart WRC. So I typed that into the utility name box and then clicked the search button. Once doing so, it produced the results shown at the bottom. And as you can see in the second column, the CCN number is 12862. So now that I've determined the CC number for Barnhart WRC, I can then navigate back to the viewer to determine to see where this CCN is actually located. So that's why it's kind of very helpful to use both this water utility base and the CCN viewer in combination with one another. Moving back to the viewers, I wanted to run through like one quick example, or actually a couple quick examples of actually how you can use this viewer. So as I mentioned, one way is searching up a specific CCN number you wanted to see it where it's located. So in the top left, you can use the search bar as I was mentioning and type in the 5-digit CCN number for either a water CCN or a sewer CCN. One thing to note is you can only search for one CCN number at a time, whether it's for water or sewer. So in this example, I've searched for 12862, which is that CCN number I just determined using the water utility database. And once you click that search button, a little magnifying, or click enter, it will zoom to and highlight the CCN's location on the map, as you can see. So then to determine some more information about the view, you can click inside the boundary of where it's certificated, and the pop-up shown on the left will come up. And so this pop-up will include all the same information, the CC number, utility, DBA, CCN type, and status that you can find down in the attribute table as well. So clicking within it kind of is a quicker way to get that information rather than kind of scrolling through the attribute table. One thing I want to note is since I knew I was searching for a water CCN on this viewer, since I knew it was started with a number 1, I turned off the sewer CCN facility lines and the sewer CCN service areas since they were not needed. So I highly recommend if you know which type of CCN you're looking for its water or sewer, you turn off the other type of CCN so you can see them independently of one another. So here's another quick search for searching by a water CCN number on the viewer. So in this scenario, I've searched up 10591, which is obviously a water CCN since it starts with number 1. And this one zooms to and highlights this location on the map as well. And seeing the pop-up, this is a facilities plus 200 feet CCN. So it works the exact same way if it's a bounded service area or if it's a facilities line CCN. Similarly, as I did mention previously, since I knew I was searching for a water CCN, I turned off the sewer CCN facility lines in the bounded service area, which I think is one of them, yeah. And then lastly, one quick example of just searching by a sewer CC number just to show you that it does work the same for water and sewer. So in this scenario, I've searched for 20091. And once it zoomed to this location, I clicked within, determined this is the sewer certificated service area for the city of Kermit and is a bounded service area CCN that has been approved by the commission. Or I guess in this scenario, since I knew I was searching for a sewer, I've done the opposite where I've turned off the water CCN facility lines and service area and turned on the sewer facility lines and service areas. So once you have searched for a CCN and now you determine its location and you want to send a map to someone, that print icon that I previously went over in the top right is very easy to use. So as I mentioned, you're able to change the template size, which have numerous different options, but I just left this one as a default 8.5 by 11 portrait. And then you can also update the map title, which in this case I've updated to Barnhart WC with their CC number, because that's the CCN I'm wanting to display. So once you have selected those options, and then click the print button, and then navigate to that results tab, this is what the PDF will look like once you open it up. So as you can see, the map title has been updated to reflect what I entered on this viewer, and then the CCN 12862 is clearly highlighted on the map. So this is very helpful in areas when there are a lot of surrounding CCNs to help show which CCN you're wanting to share with the person or yourself. Also, you can see in the bottom left is the legend of the map. And so since this was a bounded service area, as we saw previously, this is displaying the water CCN service areas and legends. And then to the right, we have the north arrow and the scale bar to use for reference. I guess one thing to note is you can just send a PDF of this map, or you can also print it out as well. Another way that the CCN viewer can be used if you're searching for a specific address to determine if an address is located within your CCN boundary or not. So this function is used a lot by the general public when they're trying to determine who the CCN holder may be for their address. So in this example, I've searched up an address, and when doing so, it zoomed to and added a highlighted point to this location on the viewer. As you can see, this little dot. And as you can see, it's within both the hatching pattern, purple hatching pattern, and the orange hatching pattern, which is for a water and sewer CCN. So to determine who this water and sewer CCN holder is, I clicked inside this area to determine who they are. And so you can see in the pop-up on the left for the water CCN is the City of Big Lake, and it's a bounded service area CCN. Also, you'll see for the sewer is also the City of Big Lake, and it's a bounded service area CCN. So when you do search by address, it may be like this scenario where it's within both a water and a sewer CCN holder, and it is the same for both water and sewer. However, there may be cases where it's just a water CCN holder or just a CCN holder or actually none at all. That's why it's important if the boundaries of the water and sewer CCNs are different to view just the waters at one time or just the sewers at one time. In this scenario, I displayed both since I knew the boundaries were the exact same. So here's another search for an address. And so I can new address in the search bar and clicked enter. And as you can see, this dot is not located within any hatching pattern for an orange or purple, meaning it's not within any water or sewer CCN. So since this address is not within any CCN boundary, these are kind of the next steps that I would take to get some more information. First, you can determine if this address is less than 0.25 miles from that CCN boundary. And so to do that, you can use the actual measure tool that's available in the viewer over here, and you can basically click from the boundary of the viewer and drag it to the point or vice versa to determine that distance. So as you can see, this distance is 0.14 miles, which is less than 0.25 miles away from that CCN boundary. So this CCN holder could provide retail utility service to this address, but they do not have the obligation to do so since it's not within that CCN boundary. But if it's determined that the CCN holder is actually not the one providing service to this address, it could be a city is providing service. And so you may need to verify if this address is within the corporate boundaries of the city, because cities are allowed to provide retail utility service without a CCN. However, our viewer does not display the corporate boundaries, so this would take some additional research that we could help assist in as well. Lastly, if you determine maybe it's not the CCN holder or it's not the city, you could also try to verify if that address is located within a TCEQ district and may be providing service to that address. And this would have to be done using the TCEQ's Water District Viewer that's available on their webpage. So after reviewing the CCN viewer, if you do have a CCN, if the boundary of your viewer does not appear to be correct where you're actually providing retail utility service, you will need to file an application with the PUC to make any changes to that boundary. This could include adding any area that's not currently within your CCN boundary or removing area from your CCN where you're not actually providing service. When you do file an application with the PUC, it's important to include all the required mapping information, which includes a general location map, a detail map, and digital mapping data. As I mentioned previously, we highly recommend reviewing the PUC's CCN Mapping Resources webpage before filing an application. Also, based on that new rule, this is a requirement by the mapping professional before an application is filed as well, attesting that they've actually reviewed this information. One thing to note that is, if you do change the boundary on the Texas Water Development Board's Water Service Boundary Viewer, this does not change the boundary on the CCN Viewer. These are two separate viewers that are identifying different information. So if you're needing to change the boundary of the CCN, you must file an application with us. For any assistance filling out an application with the PUC, please visit the technical assistance area with staff of the Division of Utility Outreach, or you may email them at water@puc.texas.gov. So the mapping section also does provide some support when applications are filed. So we do give some guidance throughout the application process. We give some general mapping guidance before an application is filed. And then we also can give some specific guidance after an application has been filed and reviewed by the staff. We highly encourage the map professionals working on these applications to work with the mapping staff throughout this process to ensure they meet the mapping requirements as efficiently as possible. So it is important to note that the general mapping guidance may only be provided before an application is filed. That's because specific mapping guidance is dependent on the entire application, including the maps, the data, and any other relevant information. So those standard mapping requirements can be found in 16 TAC 24.257. And so this includes a general location map and a detail map. So the general location map must identify the requested area in reference to the nearest county boundary, city, or town, and a detail map must identify the requested area in reference to verifiable man-made and natural landmarks such as roads, rivers, and railroads. Both of these maps should identify the exact same requested area when you do file an application. So here's a quick example of a general location map, and this map example is available on a web page in that FAQ number 6 that I previously went over. And as you can see, this requested area, this blue hatching, is shown in reference to the nearest county line and town. And this is a good example to use that would meet the mapping requirements in a CCN amendment application. Obviously, some additional information will need to be updated depending on the utility name and the CC number, but this would be a good example to use. And then moving to the detail map example, so this is also available on a web page. And similarly, you can see these requested areas being shown in reference to verifiable man-made and natural landmarks, such as these roads and then railroads and also rivers. And so this one would meet the mapping requirements once it was updated to reflect the correct utility name, CC number, and county name. So both of these map examples are able to be created using our GIS map templates available on a web page that I previously went over. And that's able for any type of application file with a PUC. Then lastly, we have also the last mapping requirement requires one of the following. So first is a digital mapping data for the requested area that's geo-referenced in one of these two projections, so NAT 83 Texas State Plain or the NAT 83 Texas Statewide Mapping System, and it's provided as a single continuous polygon record, or a meets and bounds survey, or a recorded plat. As you can see, digital mapping data is the preferred option out of these three because this helps streamline the mapping process. The reason it streamlines the mapping process is because, as I've been noting, the official certificated service areas for all the CCNs are managed and maintained in a digital mapping data format. As you can see, they were able to download on a web page and show on the viewer in that format. So to recap, the mapping requirements for an application are a general location map, a detail map, and digital mapping data. And these are the things that the GIS staff in the mapping section will evaluate in an application and petition. That's why it's important to help streamline this application to review the mapping webpage, but also to ensure that these maps and the data identify the exact same boundary for the requested area. So that's all I have for today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this presentation. As you can see, we do have a mapping email that you could please feel free to reach out with any mapping related questions.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Hank.
Thank you.